We go hard. We go hard.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, a morning edition pod after we had the late night pod. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn joining you on the morning of Wednesday, December 30th. The talk before the Hawks. I feel like we got to talk some people off the ledge. I feel like we needed a couple nights to sleep on it, to think about the team, and also to look at the rest of the league. Hudson Flynn, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday morning?
Man, I'm doing well. I like it. It's a bit of a change up. We haven't really done anything in the morning since last season, since March of last season. So it's cool to be here in the morning. I hope, we can get this pod out early enough to get some people in the right headspace before we play the undefeated Hawks tonight. So, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be thinking a lot of things about these Nets. I run the Twitter. I've seen a lot of things popping up on the Twitter. A lot of people not appreciating when I posted that we're just 4 games into the season and hey, maybe we should calm down a little bit, but we'll get there. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and speaking on the Twitter, like obviously Hudson live tweets the games for us, and I watch all the tweets and I try to amplify from my account, and I see everything that people say. It's like some people are mad that you're saying we're the best team ever, but then other people were mad when you're saying just relax, and it's like, yo, I don't know if like these are new Nets fans. I don't know if these are just Nets fans that got too excited on the prospect of us being like 72 and 0. But everyone settle down, everyone relax. It's a good time. Everyone is talking Nets, not just me and Hudson. And I think we got to see this thing through. It is a long journey and a long ride. And let's get into it. Cheers to that. I got my Talking Nets coffee mug. I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, you can definitely see that. You should actually go to shop.johnboymedia.com and buy yourself a Talking Nets mug for your coffee in the morning.
I like it. I'm in need. My sister got me a coffee maker for Christmas to go down to my dorm room. So I might have to get some more of the merch. I already got the sweatshirt out right now under the KD jersey.
Nice. And let me ask you, how was your Christmas? How was the start of your holiday break? We don't have to get right into it. We can talk personal stuff. I want to hear, how was Hudson Flynn's Christmas? You got a coffee maker and what else?
Nah, it was good. I got I had a nice Christmas with the family. It's crazy. It feels like it's so long ago now. It was last Friday. We're recording on Wednesday. So many things have happened in the Nets world. I've had all that running through my head. But yeah, no, Christmas was good. Mine, nice, relaxing with the fam. What about you, Keith? I mean, obviously, you have your girl, you had all that family. What was going on with that?
Yeah, so I got to host Christmas Day with my fiance, my sister, my mom, my future sister-in-law, my fiance's sister, and that was cool. Christmas Eve, it rained pretty hard in Jersey, but Christmas Eve day, I like went and ran and saw family all down the shore area. My girl is from Ocean County, I'm from Monmouth County. So we went and made like 4 different stops just trying to see everybody on Christmas. And it was good because it's like, okay, we got that done. We got back up to North Jersey before the rain hit, got to spend Christmas Eve at home and then host some family on Christmas Day. I got everything I could have asked for and wanted. As you get a little bit older, Christmas is like, it's different. It's different for me every year. I was in a way different spot last year when Christmas came compared to where I am now. So really, I was just like reflecting and thankful and just eating all the food and drinking all the drinks and enjoying the NBA games. But as soon as the Nets were done, I was passed out. I posted that on my Twitter and Instagram. I'm one of those guys that was like, yo, I'm going to watch all the NBA games today. I'm watching the full slate. As soon as that Nets game was over, I was like snoring on the couch.
I mean, talking about differences between this year and last year, and really this year and when was it last time? Since 2013 that the Nets were on Christmas? It's crazy. Just a lot of good stuff. The fact that the Nets were on Christmas. We got to hear our guy Ryan Rucco commentate 2 games with Richard Jefferson on that Christmas Day slate. It was just great. And I have to give Ryan Rucco the shout out because he was Talking Nets 2000th follower. Who else? Who but the guest? He hopped on the follow on Christmas morning. got us our 2000th follower. Got to give him the biggest shout out. Obviously, we've had him on the pod before, but he's been killing it. He killed it for the first Yes Network game. He killed it for ESPN, and he remains killing it.
He's dope, man. He was just on Talking Yanks last week, talking about DJ, talking about the NBA. If you guys listen to Talking Nets and you're Yankee fans, I'm assuming you listen to Talking Yanks and heard that too. Shout out to Ryan Rooks. He was I don't know what episode he was on for us, but he was like our white whale in the Yes Network crew, and we got him to come on Talking Nets, and his episode is still one of our most listened to episodes. So go check that out. And now let's just get into this, man, with the first segment. Also, this episode is the last episode we're going to do for 2020 in this format. Some of you guys that were listening to us early know that when the games start, we try and get a podcast in every two games. But for this holiday break and for this time, we're going to stick to the format one more time. And we're going to go through these, last couple games this way. So the first segment is what's new, talking NBA news, talking NBA stuff, talking about the first week of the NBA. And if you look at the NBA, man, there are some surprising teams at the top right now. We play the Atlanta Hawks back-to-back games coming up. They are 3-0. Our foes, the Orlando Magic, who we hate, are 4-0. When you look at the West, the Clippers and the Suns being up top there at 3-1 isn't too surprising, but the Lakers are all the way down there at 7. They're 2-2 like us. What? Are their fans panicking? Nah, we see their fans on Twitter too. Their fans are looking at us like, okay, if that's who we're meeting in the finals, like we're on the same pace. Hudson, any thoughts from the first week of the NBA? Obviously, we opened up on the 22nd last Tuesday. Then we had a Christmas game. Some teams haven't gotten that many games in. Like the Rockets have only played 2 games. I think the Thunder had only played like 1 game for a few days. Let's just talk quickly about the league and what you're seeing, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, if you needed any more proof that we're early in the season and we're early in what's really a weird season because of how short the offseason was, you have the Hawks and the Magic that are sitting at, with undefeated records. Then you have the Clippers at 3-1. The Clippers, they have that record, but what's that one loss? They lost by 50. They were down like 60 at the half against the Mavericks. Like, it's so early. It's so hilariously early that we can now remember every game that every team has played. And obviously, I'm talking to Nets fans who, are freaking out about Coach Nash, about Sean Marks, about the rotation we're playing, about all these things. And listen, it's just early. And if we're going to be judging ourselves off the best of the best, we're not judging ourselves off of the 4-0 Magic, the 3-0 Hawks. We're judging ourselves off the defending champion Lakers, who are also 2-2. The Celtics, a great team in the East, I think are 1-3. The Bucks aren't, undefeated either. They just lost to the Knicks. Like, it's okay. The NBA is settling into itself. That had a very hectic week of first games. A lot of teams playing back-to-backs. I mean, the Nets played Friday, Sunday, Monday. That's a lot of games in a short period of time. That's 3 and 4 days. And we know the Nets need load management, and we saw that. But all the other teams do as well. It was a short offseason for everyone. Everyone needs to build that chemistry. Everyone needs to learn and grow as a team. You can't do that off-court bonding, so you got to do the on-court bonding. And I just think we're seeing that, all around the league, watching, players settle into roles and know exactly what they need to do and, based on what team they're on and all these things. So I just think, whatever the records might be, whatever everything is saying, whatever the power rankings say, and I know we're going to get into that, it's early in the season. No one knows what's going on. Just let things settle down. The cream always rises to the top, and we know the Nets are the cream, and so are the Lakers, and so are all these teams that are, worse than the Hawks and the Magic.
Yeah, man. And we're talking about like star players and star power and the teams that we know are going to be there at the end because they have the best players in the NBA. Going into this season, you got to remind people, this thing started back up so fast. And yes, there were teams that hadn't played since March, but there were also teams that just got done playing in September, October. And when you look at the league, there's going to be players resting early. And there's also going to be injuries early. It was a few weird days and games from like Sunday. Sunday was weird because they had a Staples Center tip off at 12:30 at a Staples Center game. Like, how eerie is that? Like a Sunday game in LA at 12:30 in the afternoon with no fans. Then, like you just mentioned, the Knicks beat the Bucks. And then if you look at what the Bucks did last night, they just like set the record for threes in the NBA. So what I'm saying is you can't read too much into any of this, and all of this will literally be forgotten in a matter of weeks. That Sunday, obviously, we also took an L, and you just can't, I don't know, as an NBA fan, you can't read too much into this. This is technically still like preseason, and this is uncharted territory. I'm not really trying to talk too much about the NBA overall. Not too much time to waste on the league, man. Just wanted to walk into the podcast and let Nets fans, new Nets fans, old regime Nets fans, NBA fans, whoever is listening to this podcast, like, you guys got to know, like, this is not going to matter. Overreaction time, yes. It's fun to overreact on Twitter and Facebook and say a bunch of things and post a bunch of things, but it's not going to matter. So let's move on. Segment number 2, what's Nets? Focusing on your Brooklyn Nets. This is Talking Nets. Everybody's talking Nets. So let's talk. We have a couple games to talk to you about. Like, game 2 of 72 against the Celtics was on Christmas. Game 3 of 72 against the Hornets was on Sunday. And then we had game 4 against the Grizzlies on Monday. We slept on that 2 nights, and now here we are Wednesday. Let's talk about game 2, which was the Christmas Day game against the Celtics in Boston. The Nets win 123-95. We start off 2-0. What a way to start off. Katie and Kyrie killing it on Christmas. The back page of the Daily News and the New York Post giving the Nets their love. A lot of people talking about how, New York's basketball team on Christmas is now the Nets. They're the marquee team. There's a lot of early talk about that, which, like, I'm starting to want to get away from. Like, let the Knicks be the Knicks. Let us be us. At the end of this, we're not going to be in the same stratosphere. But I love to see what Kyrie came out and did against his former team, what our whole team came out and did, blew those boys out. Back-to-back games, winning by 25 points or more, pulling up this box score. Kyrie, man, I know you guys have heard me rep Kyrie, and I'm more of a Kyrie guy than a KD guy, but Kyrie's first 2 games were magic. And anybody that was hating on Kyrie for what he said about the media, for his saging, for his Instagram live stuff, yeah, look how quickly all these people respect that man's game. Hudson, what were you thinking looking at the Brooklyn Nets going back to Boston a week after they beat Boston and handling business again?
I mean, let's just keep in the same vein that you were talking about. Kyrie Irving through 2 games. I put it out on Twitter and Instagram. 63 points, shot 63% from the field and 64% from 3. The man is a flamethrower. The man couldn't miss. We knew he was going to go out and put on a performance against his old team and leave all of that. Where is Kyrie? Leave all of that in the back. Leave all of that in the past. That's not this year. That was last year. That was before. Who cares? But I think this might have been the high watermark for Nets fans since I don't know when. I think that's probably as good as Nets fans have been feeling maybe since the Kings game in the D'Lo era. I don't know. But it's like a different kind of expectations that game brought. And, maybe it was a little harmful bringing those expectations into the back-to-back on Sunday, Monday, and we'll get there. But, if you're just looking at this game in a vacuum, I mean, it was awesome. KD shot really well. The bench played well. The Nets showed off that depth that everyone was talking about through their first 2 games. And everything just clicked. Players sat nicely in their roles. We saw exactly what we needed to. We had the Nets' third unit, the stay ready guys, I think they like to call themselves. We had them playing like the majority of the fourth quarter. So it was just kind of just a great game. It was just another Christmas present, And obviously I had a great time covering it. Keith, you had a great time covering it, watching the game. And I think that was just kind of the feeling that Nets fans got. They said, oh, okay, this is going to be different. This is going to be, the Nets aren't going to lose this season. They're going to go, win every game by 25 points. We just beat the Warriors, but they're not that good. We beat the Celtics. Oh my God, we beat Eastern Conference Finals Celtics, by 25 points. Think about what we're going to do to the rest of the NBA. And I felt that too. I can't lie. I felt that energy and I loved what I saw from that team. But, as we look into our future, as we look into these next couple of games, I can understand where that might have been harmful. But at least for that night and until Sunday night, Nets fans were on the top of the world. Nets Twitter was the place to be. And it just felt good to be a Nets fan. Everyone was talking Nets.
Yeah, man. And it was a nationally televised game. No one else was on. We get all the attention. And with the spotlight on us, we perform. And when I say we, really 7-Eleven performed. They both were plus 31. They pretty much had all of our points. No other starter was in double digits. Karis LeVert was the only other player in double digits with 10. But KD and Kyrie put on an absolute show. Cooked Boston. Anything that like Nets fans like, that is the dream. We hate Boston. We have history with Boston. I don't have to go over it. We hate Boston, and that is the dream. And when you look at it, we won our first 2 preseason games, scoring 119, scoring 113. Then we won our first 2 games, scoring 125, 123. Yeah, this is the best team ever. Everyone's like, yo, we're gonna blow teams out. We're going to go undefeated. This is the greatest thing we've ever seen as Nets fans. I myself said, I'm not used to the Nets playing this well. I'm not used to the Nets starting early, having a lead, not blowing a lead, and then just the backups, the third unit closing the deal. So, hey, it's all right, right? Enjoy that. That was a Christmas game. Let's move on to the game that started the change in the tide, that started to hit the panic button. Because after the Celtics game, I read a lot of stuff on Facebook. I'm in 2 of these Brooklyn Nets Facebook groups. I think there's like Brooklyn Nets House, Brooklyn Nets Basketball. And people were starting to chatter about Spencer Dinwiddie, right? So Spencer only had 6 points in game 2 against the Celtics, but we scored 123. And people are saying Spencer can't play with the first unit. People are saying Spencer should be on the second unit. All this talk about Spencer, and then what happens to Spencer Dinwiddie? I literally tweeted out, dude, I'm like, Spencer Dinwiddie, bless him tonight. Spencer Dinwiddie. I thought Spencer was going to come out against the Hornets and have a big game. And we end up losing. And he started to. Yeah. And I mean, he didn't go down until the third quarter. He
15 minutes he played, and he played well. He shot 50% from the field, 50% from 3, and he was just starting to cook up when he goes down non-contact in the paint. And as soon as everybody saw it, yeah, he walked off. Yeah, he went to the bench. Everyone knew it was bad. Everyone knew what had happened, and it was just no good, Keith.
Yeah, and it's one of those injuries like in the NFL this year, I feel like we've seen more ACLs than ever. Your favorite players all are rehabbing from an ACL. Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr. I could probably list a few more guys if I really thought about it. But it's one of those things when you see it, right? Spencer, non-contact type injury, tears his ACL. He's out for the season. And I'm just like, damn, that changed things. When, especially in an empty arena like that, when a guy like that goes down, it changes the whole like team chemistry. It's like, oh shit, we just lost one of our starters for the season. And it's Spencer. Spencer was our all-star. Spencer was our guy. If you listen to Talking Nets, what was I saying about Spencer Dinwiddie's role this year? I said, when KD and Kyrie are off or KD and Kyrie are resting, that's when it's Spencer Dinwiddie's time to get buckets for the Nets. We know he can do it. He was a guy that was averaging 24, 25 points a game. That's done. So be careful what you wish for, Nets fans. There were some Nets fans on Twitter too talking about take Spencer out of the starting lineup, out of the starting 5. Now he's just out for the season, and we got to figure this stuff out. So I don't know what to say about the Charlotte game, man. I got to give them props. Gordon Hayward, Scary Terry Rozier, those guys played tough, and that was their first win of the season. And what Nets fans have to realize, and the Brooklyn Nets have to realize, is now we're like the Yankees. We got the mark on our back, right? Now everybody is playing up when they play against us, right? We can't play down to our competition at all because everybody wants to knock us off the mountaintop. And that's how that game felt. LaMelo Ball, Bridges, all of these guys were playing very well, and they did enough. 106, 104. We lose that game by a bucket. We lose that game by a bucket. Yo, I'll pass it to you, but I have to kind of like admit this and put this out there. I didn't tell anybody this until right now. The Nets were beating everybody by 25. Going into that game, the spread was minus 11. I put $100 on the Nets to cover that 11 points.
Yikes.
I was watching the game like, okay, I just threw that $100 in the trash. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and I don't think it's the Nets themselves that, that threw that $100 in the trash. It certainly wasn't KD and Kyrie that threw that $100 in the trash. It was the Nets' second unit. It was the depth. It was, what we had been raving about. We shouldn't trade it for James Harden. And by the way, I'm still on that train. I know a lot of people have hopped off of that train. Maybe, trade it all away. It doesn't matter anymore. We're 2 games in. Let's overreact. But the Nets' depth did not come to play. I think they shot as a group, aside from TLC, who I'll get to because we got a lot to talk about TLC.
Yes, sir.
I think they shot
TLC
4 of 29, 5 of 29, something like that. Like 3 of 17 from 3-point, or 3 of 20 from 3-point. Landry Shamet and Taurean Prince combined for 0 of 13 from 3.
That hurt.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was no good. That was not what we were looking for from the second unit. And here's my thing, right? If the Nets had gotten like any production from the second unit, they win that game. Like not like
it was
good
bucket.
production.
We lost by 2 points.
Like any production from the second unit. And by the way, when I'm talking about the second unit, I'm of course excluding TLC. Like I said, I'm also excluding Jared Allen because in this game and the Grizzlies game, which we'll talk about, and we had our problems with the way Jared Allen was played. Jared Allen showed out. He played great basketball. He knew exactly what he was doing. Like he has all season. He has come out with that kind of bubble mentality. We saw it a little bit last season. He started to play angry. He started to bully people in the paint. He started to do all that stuff. And now the Nets are showing it as a team, and he's showing it himself. And boy, he's showing it a lot better than the person who's starting in front of him. And, we'll talk about this more, obviously. But, this game, I just took, who's bringing the energy levels, because it's all about energy levels in these empty stadium games, right? Who is going to come out and who is going to play as hard as they can, because, honestly, the team that plays the hardest, top first starter to last man on the bench, that's the team that's probably going to win. And I looked at that within the Nets themselves, and I saw a lot of players go hard. KD and Kyrie are always going to go hard. But I saw number 5 on our starting lineup, our big man, DeAndre Jordan, not put in that same level of energy. And honestly, it showed, because for this game and the Grizzlies game, we got absolutely destroyed in the paint.
Yeah.
Offensive rebounds, just rebounding margin as a whole killed us. And it was honestly just embarrassing, because rebounding for me is the kind of thing, it's a who wants it more, because DeAndre Jordan is 7 feet tall and big. He can get rebounds, but he didn't. And the Nets didn't. And that's another big reason why we lost, aside from how terrible our bench played. And, it was just glaring, and it just makes me frustrated, because I'm a Jared Allen guy. On this podcast, we love Jared Allen. And to watch him put on these great performances, have a couple of blocks, do all these great things for the team, and then not necessarily get rewarded for that is just frustrating. Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have this Jared Allen DJ talk, because it was back-to-back games. And like I know we both could talk about this for 30 minutes, but I'm just ready for them to go ahead and okay, Jared Allen didn't get that extension last week when he was up for an extension, and people start talking about, oh, well, he'll be a restricted free agent this offseason. And he's our guy. He even had a comment saying he's been a Net his whole life and he's not used to this as far as the Nets being so highly coveted, talked about, everyone paying attention to the Nets and also having the target on their back. In this game, we were out rebounded, 52 rebounds to 46. Jared Allen had 14 rebounds. DeAndre Jordan had 12 rebounds, but it's really just the rebounds late, the offensive rebounds, and just not getting bullied. PJ Washington had 12 rebounds for the Hornets. No other Hornet had more than 8 rebounds. But then when you look at DeAndre Jordan starting for us, he gave us 1 point. And I just don't think it's even close. He's slow. His defense is a liability. And I'm just ready for us to say, okay, Jared Allen is the guy. He's our starter. He's younger. He's faster. And the more that he plays, the more confident that he's going to get. And now also, I think last pod I said, Spencer and DJ were trying to get their little Lob City thing going, their little alley-oop tandem going. Now Spencer's out, so we won't see too much of that. Give Jared Allen the starting minutes and the closing minutes late in the game. What else do I got from this game, man? Celtics fans had to be very pleased watching their former Celtics, Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, ball on the Nets after they got embarrassed on Christmas. Scary Terry dunking on KD. What's up, man? KD has gotten dunked on by Kelly Oubre. I think PJ Washington also dunked on him. And then Terry Rozier, and you hear KD talk about it. He's like, I get dunked, to getting dunked on is whatever. And of course, we want KD to play defense, whatever, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And this game was bizarre. I don't know if you remember, one of the refs got hurt during this game.
They got hurt. That was weird.
I was like, yo, this is weird. I'm like, there's something going on here. I don't know if it's because it's the last Sunday of the year. When that ref went down, I'm like, this is bizarre. When you see the game get stopped because the ref needs medical attention for a cramp, what was he drinking the night before? He's dehydrated. I'm like, oh shit, this is the type of game we're going to lose, and we lose it by a bucket. And like I said in the beginning of this podcast, it was a wild day in the NBA. We talked about the Mavs being up 77-27 at half on the Clippers. And then Paul George still had 50 points in that. We talked about the Bucks. The Cavs blew out the Sixers by 24 that day. And we lose to the Hornets by a bucket. Womp, womp.
But Keith, we can't finish this game without talking about my guy, your guy, our guy, TLC. And
that's when it started. Yep.
I got to come out and say I have a special connection with TLC. The first time I was ever on this podcast, my big analysis, my big nuanced take was after a game against the Thunder. My take was TLC is going to be the next Sean Marks reclamation guy, because in the couple minutes he played well. He hit a couple threes. He rebounded nicely. He played aggressive. And we just talked about Jared Allen needing to get more minutes, right? We know that Sean Marks is willing to make changes when things aren't working right, because when things weren't working right and when the second unit wasn't playing and when the first unit needed its spark, who'd he look to? He looked to TLC. And with about 8 minutes left to go in that game, he plugs TLC in with the starters, and TLC, easy money, 11 points, 4 of 4 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3-point range, played amazing defense, which is crazy. Because the big knock on TLC at first was he fouls too much and he doesn't play great defense for all those fouls. But now he played some of the best defense I've ever seen. And that obviously it continues into the Grizzlies game. And we'll talk about, maybe some of the consequences of his defense, foreshadowing. But, it's just crazy to see, we have this guy coming off of our third unit that is going to play so well. He's going to fit in so nicely with the starters. Know his role. He's going to play great defense. He's going to bring the energy, and he's going to hit those wide open threes when he catches them and he takes those shots. And that's all you need to do in that first unit to be a good player. And he came out and did exactly that. He was the spark that lit the fire. The Nets were down 17. The only reason that was a close game at all was because of TLC and, the combination of him and Kyrie Irving, just playing their minds out late in that game. That's the only reason it was a 2-point game. It just goes to show, first off, people weren't joking around about the Nets depth. It's a real thing. There's a reason that they have it. This is a reason. It's going to be the next man up Nets a little bit, with this Spencer Dinwiddie injury. And we saw who the next man up was. And, going into this Grizzlies game, and we're going to talk about it, people are starting to give, our guy, Coach Nash, a lot of, maybe not a lot, but certainly some questions. And people are, giving him some criticism. And I'm not on board with that because, we've seen him have the ability to make changes. And this game against the Hornets was really the first time he needed to make changes for the Nets to actually do something. Like, yeah, he made changes in the Warriors game. He made changes in the Celtics game. But this is the first time where he had to call a timeout, get the team together, regroup them, put a new person in the starting lineup from the third unit. Like, that's a big upgrade for them.
Yeah.
And make that big change. And it was the perfect move. It was the perfect change. And it was the spark and the reason that the Nets were able to come back in that game. And then Spence goes down. And before that Grizzlies game, all of the talk was, okay, who is replacing Spencer in that starting lineup? And it emerged as a conversation between Taurean Prince, Landry Shamet, over 13 from 3 combined, and TLC, 11 points, 100% shooting, was the spark that lit the fire. And I think we've reached a point where we can be pretty confident and say, if we plug TLC in there, he's going to play his role well. And that was as many TLC coming out parties as we've had, throughout the season, throughout last year and the bubble, all these things. I think those minutes are what has meant the most to TLC's career more than anything so far, because he went out with 2 of the game's superstars and stole the show.
Yeah, man. And this is a TLC Stan pod for sure. Hudson speaks French. Obviously, TLC is a French guy. I still can't pronounce his name smoothly. Timothée Luwawu Cabarro. But TLC, a.k.a. TL3, you love to see this guy respond in our time of need, right? The guy comes off the bench. He's 3 for 3 shooting. He's literally shooting 100% when he comes into the game. He's hot. He's unafraid. 4 for 4 field goals, 3 for 3 from 3-point range, 11 points when we needed someone to rise, because we just talked about Steve Nash having to make adjustments. When Spencer Dinwiddie goes down, you lose a starter. Okay, now you got to improvise. You got to kind of figure it out on the fly. That's not what you were expecting. And TLC is a guy who was a first-round pick with the Sixers, didn't really work out. But that was in 2016. He's still young. He's 25. This kid's got a lot of NBA games and time in front of him. And he's another one similar to Jared Allen, where I'm like, let the young man run. Let these young guys rip. Let these young guys get on the court, get their minutes and play. And I think we will start to see more out of TLC. I hope to get him on this podcast. I know we were talking about trying to land him as a guest. We might not be able to get him on during the season, but I'm speaking it into existence for the future, man. Let TLC rock. And after seeing that small sample size of what TLC did against the Hornets, we'll go now to game 4 of 72. And 4 of 72, the Nets lose to the Grizzlies at home, the second game of a back-to-back. We go into this game knowing Katie and Kyrie were both going to rest, both going to get the night off. Let's talk about that for a second. This was scheduled rest. Obviously, Katie with the Achilles, Kyrie with the shoulder, both of these guys being superstars, getting majority of our buckets. How did you feel about them resting the same night? Did you care? Did you think that, 7-Eleven needed to be closed, both of them off the court, or were you indifferent to this?
I mean, we're not resting them so that they can go to Vegas and gamble. We're resting them so that they can come back, tonight, Wednesday night, and put up another combined 60 points or whatever they're going to do tonight. If they're resting them, it's because they need the rest and because it's going to help them further along down the season. And that's what I care about right now. I care about the playoffs. I care about the future of this team. And if they need rest, they're not going to be rested for no reason. They need the rest, and they went out and they got it. And that's what they earned after dropping 20 plus points, 20 plus points, 20 plus points in all those games as a duo. The first Nets duo ever in history to do that. And I think it was kind of a double positive there because they get that rest, and the bench, a unit that played terribly and needed the chance to bounce back, got their chance to go out and show what they can do against a team that they could be on their own without 7-Eleven being open. So I think, as much as we want to watch them play and as much as their box office, and we love that, you have to think about the team, what they're going to bring to the team in the future, and what the team needed to do at that time. And I think it worked out on all fronts, especially going into that game. I had no issues with it other than being sad that I wasn't going to be able to, make clips of Katie and Kyrie doing magic stuff.
Yeah, it's a little harder to find highlights when Katie and Kyrie aren't on the court. Honestly, I was fine with it. Like I said, this is so early in the season. For me, I saw people like, why they got to rest together? Like, I get that they came here together. They don't have to both have the night off together. Sure, they can have the night off together. We're playing the 0-2 Grizzlies. Who knows? Maybe they just wanted to see, right? We talk all about this depth. That's what we talked about in preseason. That's what we talked about the first 2 wins, the depth of the Brooklyn Nets. I guess they wanted to see, like, what this depth was going to do. And honestly, it exposed a couple guys, and now we have some questions. But the Nets lose the game to the Grizzlies 116-111. No KD, no Kyrie, no Spencer. So the bubble Nets were effectively back on. Taurean Prince gets the start. And man, I don't know how to feel about Taurean Prince. I know Nets fans, I would say like 70% of Nets fans hate this guy. But the thing about Taurean Prince is if he plays well, if he hits shots, like that changes things for the Nets. If we can get production out of this guy, it changes a lot of things. What do you think about TP, man? I saw he put out a tweet, and I know he does a lot of like cryptic tweeting where like he might not be talking about the game or his game necessarily. But we needed more out of him, man. We needed more out of him back-to-back games. He ends up getting the start. Karras gets the start. TLC gets the start. I was fine with TLC's performance. Karras put up 28, and he actually like set a record, but I was kind of upset with his shot selection at the end. Everybody feels the same. This Grizzlies game was another game that I'm like, we could have won, because when I see John Morant go down, their superstar, John Morant, who put up 44, I think the night before in a loss, I'm like, okay. If John Morant is down in the first half, second half, we're going to have a shot to beat these guys and come back with our bubble Nets, our next man up Nets, our old regime Nets.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to go back to something you said kind of at the top of what you were talking about is I did have some trouble finding, highlights right at the beginning to show. And I had so much trouble that the first highlight I put out was DeAndre Jordan just getting absolutely exposed on defense.
Yeah.
It was like it was Jonas Valanciunas. He didn't check out. Jonas Valanciunas does the weakest little pump fake. I mean, he goes like from his waist to his stomach, and DeAndre Jordan starts lunging out the gate, and then he can just walk by him and score just without any effort, any resistance. And that was like emblematic of what happened in this game. Anytime that they wanted to score on the inside, they did. And honestly, when their guy Kyle Anderson was on, they could score from the outside whenever they wanted. That guy would look like prime Steph Curry before he got the braids.
Jersey.
Like, he is a Jersey guy. Yeah. But it was just tough to watch. It was just not at all what you want to see, especially from someone who's going to start. And my thing is, okay, he's coming to play with KD and Kyrie. He's their guy. That's his thing, right? You didn't need to start him when KD and Kyrie aren't playing. Give Jared Allen the minutes. And early on, they did give Jared Allen the minutes, and he played amazing. Jared Allen was just a beast, and it continued, from his great performance the night before, and he kept playing with that same mentality, that same pace. But then in crunch time, when, the Nets are gassed, and we started to see it happen. We started to see the Nets get tired. I mean, if you look at the minute totals from this game, and yes, it was an overtime game, they're kind of ridiculous. Like TLC and Karras both played 40 minutes. Joe Harris played 42 minutes.
Yeah.
Like those are not sustainable numbers. And we saw that. But you can't put in old, slow DeAndre Jordan for the last 8 minutes of regulation, crunch time, and then all of overtime. And we saw that, kick us right back, right from when it happened. Like as soon as he came in, problems started to arise. We started to see things go wrong. And it was all kind of just culminated in that one sequence in the end of overtime when he got like the basket interference, the offensive goaltending on like his early dunk because he
Bruh.
was like trying to put a statement on the game when he could have just caught the
Oh,
rebound
man.
or like waited a second. And then there was the loose ball foul on the other end that just straight up lost us the game. And man, like we struggled from players playing too much. But Jarrett Allen didn't because he didn't play too much. He
Yeah.
didn't play the minutes he needed to play. And, moving aside from that, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot to talk about that. In the first half, we saw a continued TLC explosion. He kind of put a statement on this game, certainly more than Taurean Prince or Landry Shamet did. He went out and he played great. I think he had something like 19 points in the first half. He had that transition dunk, and like TLC was continued to be that dude. And obviously I loved it. Obviously you loved it. But, we saw the cracks start to happen. And at the end of the game, he had a turnover on that little jump pass he tried to make, in his 40th minute of play. And that seemed to sour a lot of Nets fans. And Nets Twitter turned pretty toxic pretty quick. And, I like to think that Nets Twitter is like a pretty cohesive unit. Most people seem to be on the same page. It's kind of a tight-knit community.
Yeah.
We talk to the Glue Guys, another podcast. We have, our resident super fan in Doug Barak. Like we got all these guys, like, and they kind of work together. But at the end of the game, I put out some takeaways, and one of them was that TLC is the real deal and he should be starting. And I made that judgment based entirely on what he did in the first half in minutes that he would have gotten if he had started and played with KD and Kyrie, and in a role that he would have had with KD and Kyrie, not being forced to be the primary shot creator that someone like a Karras or a KD and a Kyrie can be, which was the role he was put in a role that he does not fit and would not play when KD and Kyrie are playing. And that got hate. Nets Twitter soured on him immediately. And Nets Twitter just as a whole got sour, and it just became just really just toxic. Obviously there's some warranted hate. Taurean Prince, DeAndre Jordan played very badly. They did not improve in a way that I wanted them to. But like we talked about in the open, a lot of these people reacted like the Nets just like got blown out in game 1 of the playoffs against the 8 seed. Like
Overreaction. That's all it is.
It's just an overreaction. And there's a lot of things you can take away from it, from that game, from what we saw. But like, take a little bit of nuance with you. It doesn't have to be 100% or 0%. Like you didn't fail or, get or pass or get an A. Like that's just the wrong way to look at things, especially with this Nets team. Like, yes, things are different. Yes, we have KD and Kyrie, but guess what? We didn't last night. We played with the old regime Nets, the bubble Nets, and we got a classic bubble Nets performance where the fact that we didn't have any depth and had to play 40 minutes showed at the end of the game when we lost, even though in the first half we kept up. We've seen this before.
That's how you get swept by the Raptors.
Just take a deep breath. Like we know we've been here before. It is not an indictment on this entire team. It is not an indictment on Steve Nash, on Sean Marks, on anyone in this team, except maybe DeAndre Jordan. I'll let that be an indictment on him. But man, it's just take a deep breath. And, this is going to be a pod that you can listen to before this Hawks game and just say, okay, we're having our stars play. We're doing what we're meant to be doing. Let's just take a deep breath and watch this team play as it was built to play.
I mean, there's so many things. I'll try and get my last thoughts from the notes and from, this game before we move on, because in the notes I basically put, Chiozza was ready. I was glad to see Chiozza. Chiozza didn't play. I don't think Chiozza had minutes before
This was his first minutes. He was the
like,
he was a DNP for both of those games, or all three of those games.
Jeez, please. Chiozza didn't play, but as soon as he got his opportunity, he started doing his thing. He's fearless. You love to see that. We had our chances second half in this game. And one thing I'm really looking at with the guys on this team, right? When we do get to where we're going to go in the playoffs with Katie and Kyrie, we need guys that make the right decisions late in the game. We need guys that are heads up players. We need guys that are thinking and like have a high basketball IQ and awareness. And like, I hate to keep shitting on DeAndre Jordan, but like late in the game, the mistakes that you talked about with the, putting the ball back too soon, like get the rebound or wait a second. You don't need to put a exclamation point on anything. We're about to lose. And then turning the ball over, right? On the other side, more props to TLC. He had a steal late in the game, which was just a heads up alert play where it was like, it gave you that feeling of like, yo, we're still in it. And like TLC comes into the game and he's locked in, he's focused. And maybe it's because this guy has like English as a second language. He's foreign. Like he comes in the game and he just seems like he's so locked in and ready to play. DeAndre Jordan, man, with the mistakes that he made late in the game, I don't see how they don't go to Jared Allen. The fan base is all screaming for it. And we missed a lot of open looks. We had so many open looks in the second half of this game. Karras, some of his shot selection was talked about on Nets Twitter and on Facebook. I will say it, man. I know Karras probably worked on shooting the three. I know all of these guys are working on shooting the three. All the talk was who can play off the ball because Katie and Kyrie are going to dominate the ball or be ball dominant. TLC is obviously ready to do that. Karras, man, we want to see you dribble. We want to see you when you're one-on-one, take it to the rim or pull up and shoot. Sucks to watch that go down. And then Joe Harris late in the game, when we talk about guys being gassed, we talk about this is just the fourth game of the season. We talk about conditioning. We talk about a back-to-back and how many minutes these guys played. Like Joe Harris didn't have it that game. I think he had a total of 14 points. And late in that game, he had a decent look. And he shot a ball that like it barely hit the front of the rim. And to me, that means like you're gassed, you're shot. You don't have your legs fully under you. He also got his first technical foul of his career.
I loved that. Oh, angry Joe Harris. Oh my God.
I had that in my notes. I want to see that. See, like that's also what I want to see. I want to see these guys get mad. In the game before, Jared Allen got tangled up. And I saw Jared Allen get mad, and that is what we've been trying to get from Jared Allen. Like, we want to see the mean streak in this guy. He seems like such a gentle giant. Nah, get pissed off, get mad. You guys are not the hunters anymore. You're the hunted. Everybody wants to knock you off, so have a chip on your shoulder. Joe Harris, Jared Allen, I like that. Other than that, man, that game was rough. Back-to-back games, losing the teams that we could have beat by a couple points. We lose by 2 and we lose by 5, which to me is just a matter of a possession or two. And yeah, that was Iron Eagle's first call of the season. Not good. The Birdman comes back. He was great. Like
he was in late season form. He had all of his TLC cheese and his Chiozza cheese puns, all those things ready to go.
Stinky cheese, didn't he say something like that?
Oh my God, it's just
a French rack attack.
It's too good. He's too good. He's too good. The Nets fans are just so like I was just talking about this before the game. We have Iron Eagle as our 1A and Ryan Rucco as our 1B. And Ryan Rucco is calling 2 games for ESPN on Christmas Day. Yep. Like that's our 1B. Like how blessed and lucky are Nets fans to have these 2 great guys from the Yes Network calling basketball games
for us. We're at the top, bro. Like I tried to watch a Knicks game the other night. I'm like, nah, that's lame. I've been watching NBA TV games. I'm like, the production level of the Yes Network, obviously New York is market 1, but the production level of the Yes Network broadcast is elite in the entire NBA. And even bringing in a CC Sabathia in the preseason, nobody else is doing that. And then, like you said, Iron Eagle is our 1A, and then we got Ryan Rucco, and then Sarah Kustok and Michael Grady crush it too with the segments. Sarah Kustok's got all the insight. We are blessed to have the Nets on Yes Crew covering our games. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's all I got from this game 4. We got crushed on the boards. Uh, Steve Nash is starting to get questioned as head coach because people are wondering why he went so long with some of these guys like Shaman and Prince when they didn't have it, and why he stuck with with DJ over Jared Allen late. But listen, right? This is a first-year head coach, and he gets respect from all the players, and he communicates very well. And he also has to figure this stuff out too. He's not going to just magically know the answers. He has to get some data on what is going on to make the right decision. So I'm not one, like I saw people calling for Nat, like people getting at Nash. I'm like, yo, this is his first head coaching gig. He's 4 games in. Like, give him a chance to fail. Give him a chance to actually like figure it out or not figure it out. I'm like, damn, like I'm thinking back to Kenny, and I'm like, this is why Kenny got so much hate. Like, shout out to Kenny, shout out to Jacques Vaughn, and shout out to Steve Nash. Let's go to our next segment. What's next? Looking ahead, we have a 6-game homestand. It started with the Grizzlies, and we've got the 3-0 Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young and them boys, they look better. Back-to-back nights at home tonight, Wednesday night, and then Friday night. And after that, we got the Wizards on Sunday, the Jazz on Tuesday, the Sixers on Thursday. Katie and Kyrie will be back. Who else do we expect to rise? Who do we need to see something out of Hudson? Like, obviously, we know TLC has already stepped up. Give me 2 players you want to see something out of, and I'll try and counter with 2 more.
All right. Well, first off, I'm just going to start out by this. I'm passed on Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince and Landry Shamet were my guys to rise last game. Didn't get it from them, so I'm just passed on Taurean Prince. I do want to see Landry Shamet play because he has gotten massive amounts of hate in these 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, he hasn't played his best games, but last game he put together some good numbers, a good performance. He didn't play a lot, but he put in some good work. I absolutely want to see him rise in these next couple of games. I think he's going to have to, because we're playing a team like the Hawks, and they have that depth 3-point shooting that I think the Nets want, Like, the Nets are looking for that kind of a thing. We're looking for that, Kevin Huerter off the bench, shooting 45% from 3. That's what we thought we have in Landry Shamet. So I want to see him respond to that kind of adversity, maybe go head-to-head with some other flamethrowers. I'm excited for that. And then, it's hard to say it, but I guess just Jared Allen again. I know he's been there. He's been playing well, but maybe there's something else he's got to do, something else he's got to show. And he's going up against a team that, they're lacking a little bit when it comes to big men. Yeah, they have John Collins, but Onyeka Okongwu hasn't played yet. And there's a reason they drafted him. They have a hole there. They don't have a second unit big man, really. So if he can come out and he can just bully a team the way the Nets got bullied these last 2 games in the paint, I'm going to be ecstatic from him. And it just becomes even more undeniable that he has to start.
Yeah. Remember when we used to do the segments? We used to do spread love is the Brooklyn way, like spreading love to the, guys on the team. And then we also did go hard, hashtag we go hard. Who do we want to see go hard? I guess this is kind of it. And I want to see the $75 million man go hard. Joe Harris, I need you to rise. Katie and Kyrie will be back, so there will be some more open looks. But I was kind of disappointed to see a 14-point output from Joe Harris and some missed shots late when he's usually better than that. We call him Broadway Joey. I always say he's ready for the bright lights, which means late in the game when it's winning time, when I just talked about guys got to make heads-up plays, have high basketball IQ, take the right shots, and make the right shots. I need more out of Joe Harris. And then you said Jared Allen. I'm going to go back to 7-11. Katie and Kyrie, be pissed off, right? You just took back-to-back L's. KD, you have videos on the internet of you getting dunked on. Like,
and missing game-winning or game-tying shots.
And exactly. It is like, yo, you didn't wait 560-some days for this. And all of this hype and all this excitement about you and Kyrie coming to Brooklyn, like, set some people straight, right? Come out in these home games on the Brooklyn court in Brooklyn and set some people straight. I want to see 7-11 dominate. Like, I want to see these guys both have 25 points or more. And I would love to see Joe Harris get the opportunity in the starting lineup. $75 million man, like, get a 20-point game, have a couple games where you're just knocking down threes. Can we get fundamental Joe? Can I see Joey step into his fundamental bag, reach into his fundamental bag, show us something? That would be nice. I would like to see those guys go hard. All right. Last segment here is what else? And I actually have some voicemails, but these voicemails are dated. They're from Thursday. So I'm assuming you guys listened to the pod last week and then you called the voicemail on Thursday, and that's fine. We're going to switch it up where like this is our last episode of 2020. I'll say it again, just reminding people we usually do a 1 hour, once a week podcast. We're switching the format up now that we're in season. 2-game format, 30-minute episodes every 2 games, which will be more like rapid fire, quick hitting episodes talking about the 2 games and whatever else comes up in the news. But let's get these voicemails in real quick and see what you guys had to say. This is from Thursday. We got, I don't know. We'll see if they left a name.
Keith, Hudson, what's up, guys? I'm pumped for the season. I'm loving the pod. Just one question here. So, we always talk about the Nets and their depth on the second team and how all those guys can basically be starters in like 80% of the league. But, I want to talk about the third team on the Nets, about 15 players. I mean, you got guys like Cruz, who was starting playoff games 2 years ago. TLC was letting it up in the bubble. We got Bruce Brown, who I know Hudson loves, and even guys like Reggie Perry. So, of all of that third team, who do you guys think will make the biggest impact on the Nets this year and can even scratch the minutes on the second team, if there are injuries involved? Happy holidays, guys. Loving the pod. Keep it going. And, yeah, good luck.
Damn, this guy must have seen some of the future, had a little bit of
that was Thursday.
Little bit of foresight coming in on Thursday. But I think we already answered his question. That's TLC, without a doubt.
Yep.
But aside from him, I do want to see Bruce Brown get some minutes. I remain high on Bruce Brown. I think what he brings to this team is something that's much needed. And the fact that he has not played a lot has been kind of shocking to me, considering what he's done in the past when he has played. I mean, he was a starter for the Pistons. So I expect to see him get some increased minutes with Spence out. And I hope that he does, because I think he can really bring something that the Nets don't have on this team, which is just that true lockdown guard.
Yeah, I'm rooting for our guy, Reggie Perry, came on the pod. And then Hudson also noted that he was on the court shooting after the game. I think Reggie Perry wants a shot. He wants a chance to make an impact. So TLC obviously has already risen from that third unit. Reggie Perry, the rookie, man, give him a chance. The guy's working. He wants a shot. All right, let's get to this next voicemail.
What's up, Keith and Hudson? My name is Jeffrey. I'm from Virginia. So I'm a Nets fan dating back to 2018 when I found a stocking cap on the ground in college. And I was only a casual fan, but this year, as soon as we got KD and Kyrie, I was like, you know what? I'm going all in. I, studied up. I got 2K. I started to figure out the NBA, and I'm so excited for this year. I don't really consider myself a bandwagon, but I guess I kind of am. But I really don't care because I just hope that we have a dope-ass year. And I just want to say that you guys are doing a great job. I love your segments. I love your banter. And, yeah.
Jeffrey, my man, appreciate the call. And listen, the bandwagon is still open, and it was open these last, 18 months, whatever it was. I don't care if you found a stocking cap. I don't care if you found an old Nets jersey, hat, and decided to join us, because that's the whole thing, right? We're trying to build the Nets community, the Nets fans. Like, there's group chats and Nets Twitter lists and all of this stuff that you're starting to see. There are Nets fans. And me personally, I've been a Nets fan since the Jason Kidd, Vince Carter days. I love it now to see people coming out of the woodwork repping the Nets. And even like our followers are growing, and it's no coincidence. It's like, okay, they weren't checking for us when we were losing 8 games or on an 8-game losing streak last year. They weren't checking for us when we were blowing it in overtime. Like, we just lost that game in overtime. I'm like, this is what the Nets do. Our first game of the season last year, we lost in overtime. We had a game against OKC last year that we lost in overtime. I could probably think back to losing back-to-back games and losing in overtime. That is just what we do as Nets fans. But new Nets fans, understand that you are welcome here. We want you here. Brooklyn is like, that's spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. Brooklyn is about community, diversity, everyone together. The hashtag for this team this year is hashtag Brooklyn together. So Jeffrey from Virginia, you're all right with us, man. Hudson, you got anything else?
Nah, absolutely. I love the net support from the DMV. Always got to support, my one of my favorite areas in this country, the DMV. But no, I love it. And just like you said, there's Nets fans out there. It's growing. And man, we don't care if you just became a Nets fan today. Honestly, if you became a Nets fan today, this day, you mean exactly as much to this podcast, to the Nets community, to Nets Twitter, as Keith, as me, as anyone, who's been a Nets fan for however long. And we know you're out there, and, we're glad that it's all growing. Like you said, Keith, the Twitter, I've been running it. We're up 700 followers in the last month and a half. Like, it's growing. There's more Nets fans, and I'm just excited by it. And, not just because we do a Nets podcast, we run the socials, we do all that. It's just nice to know that there's all these other Nets fans, because for so long, and I know, Keith, you've experienced this, I would say that I was a Nets fan and expect people to laugh at me immediately after I say it.
Yeah.
And now here we are with a bandwagon with all these fans. And I'm just excited that we can come together and, do something special this year.
Yeah, for a long time, man, I would see people with the Brooklyn B, or even anyone with any type of Nets stuff, whether it was just a hat or a shirt or a jersey. And I would be like, yo, you a Nets fan? And a lot of times I would get, nah, I'm just wearing the jersey. But now it seems like people that were just wearing the jersey are saying, no, I'm all in this year. I am a Nets fan. And I mean, I wish we could go to the Barclays Center, because once you go to a game and you hear the hip hop and you understand that it's bigger than just basketball. We have star players. We're in Brooklyn. This is a New Jersey rooted team that moved to Brooklyn for this exact moment. The City Edition jerseys. Now we got Basquiat. Before we had Biggie with the Coogee. It's just cool, man. And the Brooklyn Nets are doing the right things. They're leaders in the community, and this team is going to win games, and it's going to be a fun ride. And I'm glad we had this talk today before we face the Hawks today, to kind of talk people off the ledge, kind of reel everyone back in. We are going to be just fine. And if you want to be heard on this podcast, leave us a voicemail. The line is 201-870-0461. We'll play your voicemail like we just did. Make sure you follow us on social media. I love that the podcast is growing. Man, let's get to 3,000 followers this season. Let's get to 4,000 followers this season. Hudson and I will keep cranking out content, making clips from the games, talking about the games. So follow us at Talking Nets on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Let me add Instagram and Facebook in there too, because we're working on that. Follow John Boy Media, the brand, the empire. That's who we, work with. Obviously, that's our team. That's our company. Follow John Boy Media on everything. We even have a TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. It's just my first and last name. I'm authentic, real name, no gimmicks. Hudson Flynn, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Hudson Flynn _ on Twitter. But
Woo.
just follow the brand, follow Talking Nets, because that's where all the content is coming. And, we've been getting some recognition. Obviously, we've gotten those followers, but if you follow Overtime, House of Highlights, a lot of those places,
Nets
I've been looking
Daily.
at our Nets Daily. I've been looking at our video analytics and, who we've been getting retweeted by. A lot of those, whenever they're looking for Nets clips, they're going to us. So just give us a look, if you want that content first, if you don't want to see it recycled, you know where to go.
And last but not least, subscribe, rate, and review the pod now more than ever. I see the podcast is growing in listens. I see more people are listening to the podcast. But if you're listening to this podcast, you got to hit subscribe, leave us a rating, 5 stars, and write a review. I'm not doing any more giveaways. Shout out to Dylan. Dylan, who wrote our last review. He should have received his Talking Nets hoodie. But write us a review and maybe I'll change my mind. But we need those reviews. It makes us look good. It makes us look more legit. We just started. This is episode 70 of our podcast, and we plan to keep it going. I can't wait to watch the Nets play tonight. Hopefully we can beat the Atlanta Hawks back-to-back games. Should be some fireworks. Trae Young KD, Kyrie, some superstar players out there. And no matter what the outcome is, we'll be right back here talking about the games. Keith and Hudson saying, let's go Nets. Brooklyn.
We go hard. We go hard.